All right, good evening once again, students. We are back for another session. And so we're going to continue from where we left off from last class, and we'll be looking at hire purchase. Now, there are some important things that I would like to discuss. And so shortly after I'm finished with this topic, I'm going to be discussing the SBA and the SBA groups. All right. I want to be able to choose members for groups. And as I mentioned before, a group can only have at most 5 students. All right. So we'll be talking a little bit about the groups and the SBA shortly after I'm through with this topic. And so I'll tell you how I'm going to go about choosing members for the group. All right. All right. So with that said, moving on, hire purchase. Now, anybody ever bought anything on a hire purchase? I would like to share the experience that you have when you buy things on hire purchase. Ms. Waysome, have any hire purchase experience? Go ahead, Ms. Williams.
No, sir.
Ms. Williams, you can go ahead. Are you hearing me? I'm not sure what is happening with Ms. Williams, but are you hearing me, Ms. Williams?
Yes, sir. I'm hearing you now.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir. So when you do an hire purchase, I realized that I paid like twice three times the original price of the item.
Okay.
For the period of time that you paid for. It depending on how long you are doing it for.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So if you are doing it for a shorter period of time, you might pay maybe 2.5 times the original price. But if, for example, for 3 years, you may pay 3 times the original price. Okay. And if you are late on your payment, then it attracts a fee.
Okay. All right. So let me add some things to what Ms. Williams have said about hire purchase. Ms. Williams, you can lower your hand now. All right. You can lower your hands. All right. So hire purchase, as Ms. Williams would have pointed out, that you would have paid a lot more than you would have paid when you bought the goods by cash. Now, a hire purchase arrangement has some good thing about it and some bad thing about it. Now, the good thing about it, when you buy goods on hire purchase, is that you can pay down a small amount of money and you may have the goods to your comfort, right? So you make a deposit, and after you make a deposit, depending on what the arrangement is, whether or not they will ask you to pay some amount of installments, or whatever the arrangement is, you get an opportunity to use the goods while you're paying for it, all right? Which you don't really get that opportunity when you don't have the money to buy the goods. If you're going to save the money to wait until when you accumulate the money to buy it, you won't have that luxury of having the goods. All right, so that's one good thing about hire purchase. Another good thing about hire purchase, it makes it a little easier for payment in terms of the amount that you may have to pay. And it does so over time. Now, one would imagine that it would have cost a lot more in the long run. However, the reason why hire purchase is so favorable to the person who is doing the selling is that they are somewhat giving you an opportunity to pay for goods over a long period of time. Now, what that means for them, it means that they will have to wait long to get their money. And so based on that long wait, they want to be able to attract some kind of profit over that long duration. And so hire purchase arrangement would have probably, as Ms. Williams will say, you may probably pay twice or even, depending on the arrangement, probably 3 times what the goods would have cost when you pay cash. But it works for some customers because sometimes you have a monthly salary, but based on your budget, you probably cannot pay more than what your budget can allow you to. So maybe hire purchase would work out well for some person. So some people will opt for hire purchase for the convenience of payment, even though they're going to pay more in the long run, and to have the goods as goods at their disposal. All right, so it's always better if you can buy cash. Because when you buy cash, it saves you a lot in terms of money, and it saves you a lot in terms of time, right? So you don't have to be going through that long arrangement. And a downside to hire purchase is that if you lapse on your payment, you may have some penalty attached to it. And if you are unable to pay after a certain period and you're not paying, they will send the bailiff to come and take the product. I'm not sure as to how they deal with the losses or the money that you would have paid, but apparently if you have the goods for that period of time, then probably they would argue that you would have gotten a service from what you would have paid. So that is the whole idea behind hire purchase. So hire purchase, generally you have a deposit that you pay, and so the persons who are the salesperson will put that hire purchase arrangement in place. Now, sometimes the arrangement can be for different durations. So let's say you may have 6 months that you can do a hire purchase for, or you can do it for 16 months. But what would happen is that the less month that you're doing the hire purchase on, you would get a better deal in terms of payment. And so if you pay for it within 6 months, you might pay less than when you're going to pay for it in 16 months. All right. So let us see how the hire purchase arrangement works. So a hire purchase arrangement allows the customer to use the item without paying the full price at once. Usually an initial deposit is required and an interest is charged on the balance. Now the balance is paid in equal installments, all right? And this can be weekly or monthly, depending on the arrangement, all right? Now, we're going to be looking at an example here where a stereo set has a cash price of $14,000. Under hire purchase arrangement, 20% deposit is required plus monthly installments of $650 for 2 years. How much money is saved by paying cash? Now, before I jump and actually work through this question, I want to give you an opportunity to try it for yourself to see whether or not you will be able to figure out how the calculation would work. So you need to be able to say how much money is saved if you buy cash. So obviously what you'll have to do, you'll have to calculate how much it would cost by a hire purchase. And then you would subtract the cash price from it and see how much difference would have been left. And it means that you would have saved that amount by paying cash. All right, so I'm going to give you at least about 2 to 3 minutes to attempt this question, and then we go through it together. All right, guys, so you can go ahead and start. So as usual, you can just raise your hand when you're through the question so that we can start working it together, all right? All right, anybody finish the question or almost finished? All right, Ms. Williams, would you like to walk us through the process? Tell me what steps you would take in this procedure now.
Sir, I tried. I'm not sure if I'm right, but I'm going to tell you what I did. So I say, what I did was to take away the 20% from 100%. So 100 minus 20 would leave 80%. And then what I did was to divide the 80% by 100 times the cash price. And I got 11,200.
Oh, that's what
For
it
the answer.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So all right, your steps are a little bit unusual. So I am not sure if your answer is correct as yet. But I will walk you through the steps, and then we will do the calculation and see what the result will be. Anybody else have any different approach apart from Ms. Williams who would like to try the question? All right, so let us analyze the question. So you have a stereo set has a cash price of $1,400. So we know what the cash price is, right? It's $14,000. On the hire purchase arrangement, you have to deposit 20%, and then you're required to pay the rest in the installment of $650 per month for 2 years. All right. So the hire purchase arrangement would be hire purchase arrangement all right, let me use a slide because I'm not doing this writing thing so good. All right, so the hire purchase arrangement would be your deposits, right, would be 20% of the cost. So your deposit would have been $2,800, all right? Next, your installments. Now you have 2 years in which to pay monthly installment of $650. So in terms of monthly installment, how many months you would have over the 2-year period? Clearly, we would have 24 months. So it means that you would have 24 installments to pay of $650. All right. So when you calculate 24 times $650 for the 2 years, you would pay $15,600. All right. So the hire purchase cost overall would be the deposit plus the installment for the 2 years. And when you add that, the overall cost will be $18,400. All right, so that is if you buy the goods by hire purchase. At the end of the period, you would pay $18,400. Now, the question is how much you would save if you purchase the goods by cash. Now, if you purchase the goods by cash, you will only pay what? $14,000. But if it purchased by hire purchase, you are paying $18,400. Now, in order to determine how much you would save, you would have to now subtract the cash price from what the higher purchase price is. And then now that will tell you how much you would save. So the amount saved by paying cash would be the higher purchase cost minus the cash price cost. So you would save 4,400. All right, is everybody clear on that? Let me see the hands if you're all following and you're clear on what is happening. All right, do you want me to just walk back through the question again, just for clarity? All right. All right, so for hire purchase, the hire purchase agreement, you will have to pay a deposit. So you have to pay a deposit. So in other words, you pay down some money. That's what the deposit is. And then now, after you pay the deposit, then you have to pay installments. And the installments, the installments is based on how much you pay per month and for how long. Now, so your deposit going to be 20% of the cost. And your monthly installment would be $650 for each month for 2 years. So if you're paying $600 for 2 years every month, then you have to find out how many months in the 2 years. So 12 months make 1 year. So clearly 24 months would be in 2 years. So in 2 years, you would have 24 months. So you'd have to pay 24 times 650. And so that would give you the amount you would pay in installments. All right, so if you were to calculate the 20% deposit, you would calculate, because you know that 20% is 20 over 100. And then you times it by the cash price. And you do the calculation here, you can calculate zeros below, cancel with zeros above. So if you want, you can cancel this 0 and one of this 0. And so now you would have 2 times 1,400, which would give you 2,800. So this is their deposit. So initially, when you're doing the hire purchase arrangement, at the beginning, you have to pay down the $2,800. Now, after that initial $2,800 now, every month for the 2 years now, you're going to pay $650. So you pay the deposit, then the first month installment will be $650. And then the next month will be another $650, and you do that for 24 months. And so when you do that for 24 months, you could multiply 24 times the $650, and in total, what you would pay in installment would be the $15,600. All right, so installment is what you pay monthly. The total amount that you would pay would be the deposit plus the installment. So your deposit was $2,800. And then now for the 2 years or the 24 months, your total installment would have been $15,600. When you add these now, this is what you would pay for the goods when you buy it on hire purchase. Now, if you pay this for the goods on hire purchase, and you pay $14,000 when you buy it cash, how would you determine how much you save if you buy it by cash?
So you would minus the 14,000 from the 18,400.
Exactly, because you want to see how much extra you're going to pay when you pay hire purchase. So you take out how much you would pay for cash out of the hire purchase amount and see how much left. And that would be the amount that you would pay in excess. So if you were paying cash, you just pay $14,000. But when you're doing a hire purchase, it costs you $4,400 more. Because if you add this $4,400 to the cash price, you will get the higher purchase price, which is $18,400. So is everybody clear on that now? Let me see the hands. Let me see your hands if you're clear, guys. Now, so the key thing is that when you're doing an hire purchase question, you first need to identify what percent you need to deposit. Then you calculate your deposit. Then now you need to identify next how many months you're going to have your installment to pay. So you find out how much the installment is. In this case, it's $650. And then now the entire duration that you're given, you have to divide it up in how many months. So 2 years is the period in which you're going to pay. So you divide the 2 years in months, so you get 24. So you simply multiply the monthly installment price by 24 months, and that gives you a total installment. And then now you add both of them together, the deposit and the installment, and then whatever you get, that's your hire purchase cost. All right, guys, so everybody should be good on that. So it's pretty straightforward. Now, just to make a comment, sometimes you may have questions that will, they might give you like, well, probably it's not so applicable to this, but like when you're doing simple interest, they might give you, instead of the years, they might give you the time in months. And sometimes you have to convert months into years, all right? Whenever we come across any such question, I will make that clarification for you. All right, guys? All right, so moving on. So the next thing that we're going to be looking at now is payment by hour. Now, whenever you are employed, there are different payment arrangements that an employer may have with an employee. Ms. Cox, would you like to say something?
No, sir.
All right, you can lower your hand, please. All right. So there are different payment arrangements that the job may offer. All right. Some employer might offer weekly salary, and they may offer like monthly salary, and some may offer payment by the hour. Now, it means that if you're working by the hour, then clearly you would have a certain number of hours in the day. And usually for a full day, it's generally about 8-hour days you have generally. All right, depends on the employer anyways. So after that 8 hour for the day, then you would have done a full day work, right? Now, it means that in order to account for your hours, you would have to punch in at a certain time, and you would have to have some time card or if you punch in at a certain time and punch out at a certain time, they can use that to calculate how much hours you actually spend on the job. So they will add up all your hours for the entire week and pay you in accordance. All right. Now, so there is what we call hourly rate, and if your hourly, your day is an 8-hour day, if you exceed 8 hours in the day, anything come after 8 hours would now be overtime. So you now have an overtime rate. Now the overtime rate is usually more than the daily rate. So the overtime rate is kind of like going in your personal time. And so for your personal time now, they have to pay you a little bit more. So if it was that you were being paid $10 an hour for your regular rate, then for your overtime rate, they may offer to pay like $15 per hour for the overtime, or they may offer to even double it. So it depends on how urgent they want to get the job done. They may want to encourage you to do extra time just to get the job done on time. All right, so many people who worked in factories, etc., are paid a certain amount of money for each hours that they work. Most employees work a basic week of so many hours, and this basic week fixes the hourly rate or the hourly rate of wages. Basic rate or hourly rate. So if you have basic rate, it means the hourly rate for your regular hours. All right. So your basic rate, hourly rate is a basic week, and it is fixed by negotiation between the employer and the trade union. All right. So they will determine, and most of the time the labor board have a say in what these rates ought to be, because they will probably calculate based on what you're able to afford and what your household would look like in terms of whether or not you are able to live up to your demands or your bills. Then the labor board will set a negotiation with the rate of the employer with the employer. All right. Now, here a man work a basic week of 38 hours, and his basic hourly rate is $3.75 per hour. So you have to calculate his total wage for the week. Now, this is a pretty straightforward calculation. Anybody can tell me now how you go about calculating how much he would work for the week?
Sir, 3.75 times 38.
Right. So clearly, if he has a 38-hour week and his basic rate is $3.75, then clearly you're simply just going to multiply the number of hours times his basic rate. All right. So that is pretty straightforward. So wage for the week would have 38 hours at $3.75 per hour. So you multiply 38 times $3.75. So for the week, he would have earned $142.50. All right. Hence his total wage for the week, $142.50. All right. Everybody is with that? Pretty straightforward. Let me see the hands of those